Imagine waking up one day to find an entire town has vanished. No people, no animals, just silence. History is filled with stories like these where whole villages disappeared without explanation. Some were swallowed by nature, others abandoned overnight, and some left behind mysteries we still cannot solve. Today we are looking at the disturbing disappearances of entire villages throughout history. Imagine a village so completely erased that no trace of it remained except in church records. That's what happened to Döppelg, a remote settlement in Germany during the mid-1500s. Historical accounts describe a violent landslide triggered by days of heavy flooding and unstable hillsides. The entire community was swallowed overnight. Unlike earthquakes or fires, landslides of this size leave nothing but silence. Reports from the time say that attempts to dig through the mud and debris failed. The village was buried so deep that recovery of the dead or even rebuilding was impossible. Families, homes, and farmland were trapped forever beneath the earth. For the people living in nearby towns, it was just as if this one had been erased from the map in a single night. Today we know landslides in the Alps and surrounding regions can cover entire valleys, but the fact that an entire community disappeared without warning in the 1500s makes this one of Europe's eeriest forgotten villages. In 1923, a group of travelers stumbled across the Brazilian village of Hoer, Verde, only to find it completely deserted. According to reports, over 600 people had lived there, yet the streets were silent. Meals sat unfinished on tables, weapons were stacked neatly against walls, and not a single villager was in sight. The most chilling clue was a chalkboard in the schoolhouse with the words, "There is no salvation," scrawled across it. The story spread quickly, and this became one of Latin America's strangest unsolved mysteries. Skeptics argued that no concrete records of the town exist outside the disappearance story, which has led some to question whether it was more legend than fact. But if true, the idea of 600 people abandoning their homes in unison without leaving tracks, luggage, or explanation is disturbing. Was it mass panic, an outbreak, or something even darker? The debate continues, but the tale of Hoer Verde still makes people uneasy a century later. Picture a prosperous desert village alive with markets, livestock, and families, and then imagine it abandoned in a single night. That is the legend of Kuldhara in Rajasthan, India. In 1825, the entire population vanished. According to local folklore, the local ruler wanted to forcibly marry the daughter of the village chief. Faced with humiliation and oppression, the villagers chose to leave together rather than give in. But they didn't just leave, they cursed the land, vowing that no one would ever live there again. British colonial records confirm that the village was empty when they surveyed the area years later. Since then, every attempt to resettle Kuldhara has failed. Locals believe the curse still lingers today, and tourists report hearing whispers, footsteps, and the feeling of being watched among the ruins. Whether it was politics, rebellion, or just a little bit of superstition, the overnight disappearance of Kuldhara remains one of India's most chilling mass desertions. Not every village disappearance is wrapped in mystery. Some are burned into history with pure horror. In June 1944, SS troops entered the small French town of Oradour-sur-Glane. They rounded up nearly 650 villagers under the pretense of an identity check. By nightfall, the town was destroyed and almost every inhabitant was dead. Soldiers locked people in the church and set it on fire. When Allied forces liberated France, Oradour-sur-Glane was left untouched. Rather than rebuild, the French government preserved the ruins exactly as they were, a frozen snapshot of the atrocity. Walking through it today feels like stepping into a nightmare where life was suddenly ripped away. Unlike other cases, we know who was responsible, but the total eradication of an entire village in a single day stands as one of the most disturbing disappearances in modern European history. In the Arabian desert, legends spoke of Ubar, a wealthy trade city known as the Atlantis of the Sands. For centuries, many dismissed it as a myth, but stories told of a city destroyed by divine wrath, swallowed by dunes after its people defied God. Travelers claimed to see crumbling towers half buried in sand, only to vanish again beneath shifting desert winds. In the 1990s, satellite imagery revealed what many had long suspected: unexpected: the ruins of a collapsed city buried in Oman. Archaeologists determined that Ubar likely thrived as a major hub for frankincense trade before its underground water system collapsed. Without support, the city literally sank, its towers swallowed by desert. The discovery confirmed that the myth of Ubar had roots in truth. Whether by natural disaster or divine punishment, the sudden erasure of an entire civilization deep in the desert still sparks awe and fear. On a hillside in southwestern Turkey stands Kayaköy, a haunting shell of a once thriving Greek Christian community. For centuries, Greeks and Turks lived there together, but in 1923, after the Greco-Turkish War, an agreement forced all Greek residents to relocate to Greece, while Muslim Turks living in Greece were sent to Turkey. It was a massive, government-ordered population exchange. Kayaköy was emptied almost overnight. Thousands of homes, 2 grand churches, and schools were all abandoned. Attempts to repopulate it failed, and earthquakes later damaged much of the site. Today, the rows of roofless stone houses stretch across the hillside as a silent reminder of the people who were forced to leave. Unlike some more supernatural vanishings, Kayaköy shows how politics and war can erase a community just as completely. Walking its empty streets, visitors say it feels as if families left only yesterday. In the remote Arctic archipelago of Svalbard lies Pyramiden, a Soviet coal mining settlement. At its peak, it was home to over 1,000 people, complete with schools, a cultural center, and even the world's northernmost Lenin statue. Then, in 1998, it was abandoned almost instantly when the Soviet Union collapsed and coal operations shut down. Residents left personal belongings, children's toys, and books behind. Walking through Pyramiden today feels surreal, as though life froze in the 1990s. The empty swimming pool, silent piano in the theater, and dusty classrooms make it one of the eeriest ghost towns on Earth. Although the disappearance wasn't super mysterious, the speed and totality of the abandonment turned a thriving Arctic settlement into a frozen time capsule of the Cold War. In the early 1990s, a small Russian village named Pavlovka gained attention after journalists described it as eerily deserted. Homes reportedly had meals left unfinished, radios still playing, and no trace of the residents. Some speculated villagers fled due to contamination from nearby military testing grounds. Others believed it was an environmental disaster covered up by officials. What makes this place super unsettling is the lack of clear information. Unlike other ghost towns where economic collapse or war is documented, Pavlovka seems to vanish into rumor after the initial reports. Whether it was a community driven away by fear or something even stranger, Pavlovka remains one of Russia's creepiest, now you see it, now you don't, settlements. At the start of the 20th century, Kolmanskop was booming thanks to diamond mining. German settlers built mansions, schools, and even an opera house in the desert. For a brief time, the town thrived in the middle of nowhere. But when larger diamond deposits were discovered elsewhere, people left. Within a few decades, Kolmanskop was deserted. What makes it unforgettable is how quickly the desert took over. Sandstorms filled homes, swallowing furniture and piling dunes inside living rooms. Today, visitors wander through buildings half buried in sand, as if the earth itself wanted to erase human presence. Kolmanskop shows how fragile wealth-based settlements can be, thriving one year, gone the next, leaving behind eerie, sand-filled skeletons of a lost dream. In 1943, a farmer in Mexico's Michoacan state noticed smoke rising from his cornfield. Within hours, the ground cracked open and a volcano was born. It grew so rapidly that lava flows soon threatened nearby villages. San Juan Parangaricutiro was directly in its path. Over the next year, lava swallowed the town, burying homes, roads, and farmland. By the time the eruption ended, only the steeple of the village church remained above the hardened black rock. The villagers fled and resettled nearby, but their original home was gone forever. Standing at the site today is chilling. The church's stone bell tower juts out of a frozen ocean of lava, a reminder of how quickly nature can erase centuries of human life in just a few days. Alright guys, that has been our list for today. Thanks so much for checking it out. I've been your host today, Olivia Kozlowski, and I will see you again soon. Goodbye!